All right, today we're going to talk over real life scenarios of inequalities. So this is really getting into why inequalities matter. So if you've been thinking, okay, we've been learning about them, naming them, graphing them, what's the point? Today's kind of the what's the point. You will come across inequalities quite a bit in life. So, today's lesson kind of sets all that up for us to start exploring that and thinking about that a little bit more. So if you've been curious about why we've been learning this, why it all matters, today's that day where we start to figure that out. So key vocabulary terms that help us out. We have greater than, less than, greater than or equal to, and less than or equal to. There are words that when you see them when we talk about scenarios, these tip us off to what type of inequality we're dealing with. So taking a look at these, we're just going to fill in the blanks together. Feel free to kind of rewind or pause or anything like that if you need to catch any words that you didn't get. Or if you really want to be lazy and ignore what I'm saying for the next little bit, you can skip down to wherever I have that at. All right, taking a look at greater than. Our first word is more than. So when you see more than, we're talking about something that's greater. Above. Over. Larger than. Exceeds. So like if someone exceeds the speed limit, they're going over the speed limit. All right, leave that there for a second so you can copy that down because I have to slide it back over a little bit. Okay, increased. Longer than. And is higher than. Okay, so those are all ones that mean greater than. For less than, think about it, greater and less are opposites of each other, so the vocabulary that we have is pretty much opposite. Okay, instead of more than, it's fewer than. Okay, if greater than was above, that means that less than would be below. Okay, instead of over, we have under. If I can spell that right, there we go. Okay, larger than, well, we're going to skip something with that. We're going to call it shorter than. Okay, and then we also have smaller than. Coming back to larger than. Okay, is lower than. And beneath. Okay, all of those are the vocab words for less than. Now, the next one we're going to talk about gets into something that can get kind of tricky, which means you need to make sure you're paying attention to everything that you're looking at. And that gets us into greater than or equal to. The reason this is tricky is the first one, is no fewer than. So if you only look at the word fewer, both less than and greater than or equal to have fewer in it, but they mean different things. This means you have fewer. This means is no fewer than, which means you have nothing that is smaller than or fewer than the number. So everything has to be bigger. And the key is there's the is no versus up here. Okay, so you have to look at everything around it, use the context clues around that vocab word to figure out is it less than or is it something else like greater than or equal to. Okay, this is a big one that you will see next, at least. Because when you think about it, it's at least 2 o'clock, which means it could be 2 o'clock or it's going to be past 2 o'clock. Okay, so that's a big one when it comes to greater than or equal to. Minimum. And the reason that minimum is this is that when you think about something that's minimum, that's like the smallest amount. The minimum amount of money that you can put into a gift is $10. That means that's the least amount you can spend, the smallest amount, or you can spend more. Okay, bottom is another one. Because think about it. When you're at the bottom, the only place you have to go is up, so something that's bigger. Okay, and is no less than. And again, we have less than being used down here, but again, that key is no, which means if it's not less than, it has to be greater than. Okay, or it could be the same amount. All right, last ones we're going to look at here, less than or equal to. So, is no more than. And again, just like the opposite here, instead of is no less than, is no more than. Okay, instead of minimum, or at least, we have at most. Okay, instead of minimum, we have maximum. And then instead of bottom, we have top. Okay, this one, you will see this quite a bit, at most. So in my bank account, I have at most $50. That means I have $50 or I have less than $50. Okay, the maximum amount of points scored in the game was 22. So that means that someone scored 22 or everyone else scored less than 22. Okay, and then think about it. When something's a top, the only place you have to go from there is down or smaller. All right, let's take a look at some examples together. We're going to use these keywords to write two inequalities and graph the given situations. So this is taking what we've learned in the last couple lessons and putting it all together real quick. All right, taking a look at number 1. On the highway, the maximum speed limit is 65 miles per hour. Keyword we have here is maximum, and I'm looking at the number 65. So what this means is this. We're going to use x as our variable for these. We're going to be boring today and just use x because I want you getting used to seeing x as a variable. Okay? X is how fast we're driving. Okay? The maximum speed limit is 65 miles an hour. That means my speed that I'm driving, if I'm going to stay the speed limit, not go speeding, not break the law, it's either going to be me going 65 miles an hour or I'm going to be going less than that because the maximum I can drive is 65. It's fine to drive less, cannot drive more. All right, so if we look here, maximum is less than or equal to. So if I'm looking at maximum, okay, that means my speed is less than or equal to 65. That's the first inequality. Our second inequality, like we talked about, is just simply flipping those around. And remember, the easy trick for that, pointing at the x, when you do it, keep it pointing at the x. Okay, or you're flipping it from less than or equal to greater than or equal to, and you're also flipping the order of the 65 and the x as well. All right, I'm going to show you something I usually don't like showing students because it just gives you an excuse to be lazy, but if you're doing a graph, this is really all that I would ever require of you because this shows that you set up the graph correctly. You just need 3. 65 is our target. We're going to put that in the middle, and that's just setting up a number line, 64, 66. You're showing your target, and you're showing one that's smaller, one that's bigger. That way you know which way bigger is and which way smaller is. Remember, for graphing, variable on the left side tells us which way to draw the arrow. So we have the less than or equal to, so there's an equal to in there. So I'm going to draw the circle at 65 and shade it in. And then based on the variable being first, we know we're drawing our arrow to the left. All right, there is your written 2 ways and graphed. All right, take a look at number 2. Mr. Teitsma's dog weighs more than 15 pounds. So, keywords we have there are more than, and then we have the number 15. So if you come up here and you take a look, more than is with greater than. So, using x again, how much my dog weighs is more than 15 pounds. So x is greater than 15. Can my dog weigh 15 pounds? Nope, he weighs more than 15 pounds. Okay, can't weigh 15 because he's more than that. And 15 is not more than 15, so you cannot have the equals here. It's got to be just greater than. All right, rewriting it. If x is greater than 15, that means that 15 is less than x. 15 pounds is less than what my dog weighs. Okay, it's another way you can think of it there. Or, like we talked about, flip the order. Inequality symbol's pointing at the 15. Keep it pointing at the 15. All right, graphing it. Again, using the lazy way I don't normally want to teach you, but it at least shows you what kind of the minimum acceptable thing is for graphing. Okay, 15 in the middle, and then we're just going to set up a number line, 14 on the left, 16 on the right. No equal sign in the inequality, so we're going to leave that circle open at 15, and then using this one because it gives us the way to point, arrow goes to the right. All right. Number 3, Nicole needs to work no less than 10 hours to afford a new pair of shoes. The keywords in here that help us to figure this out is no less than. Okay, and then we have the number 10. So, is no less than or no less than? Well, I see no less than right here, which goes with greater than or equal to. So, her amount of work is the thing. Okay, so Nicole working no less than we know is greater than or equal to, based on our words up top, 10 hours to afford a new pair of shoes. Flipping that around, change the order of the 10 and the x. Symbol is pointing at the 10. Keep it pointing at the 10 because how much she needs to work is greater than or equal to 10 hours. Okay, she could work 10 hours and afford those shoes. She could also work more than that because that's going to give her even more money. Okay, and over here, 10 hours that she needs to work is less than or equal to how much she needs for the shoes. Okay, 10 hours will get her the shoes that's equal to, or more than that is enough as well. All right, graphing it. Same thing, 10 in the middle, set up a little number line, do it the right way, unlike Mr. Teitsma, who put another 10 there, make that 11. Okay, we have the equal sign in there, so at 10 we are a closed circle. And then this one tells us which way it's pointing. Points to the right because she can work more than 10 hours, or as much as 10 hours and she'll earn enough money. All right. We did those first 3 together. What I want you to try is the last 3 on your own, numbers 4, 5, and 6. So when I get done talking, I want you to pause the video and try those 3 before hitting play again. Make sure that you're keeping a lookout for the key vocabulary that we had to help you with vocabulary as well. Here is your word for tomorrow. It's actually 2 words, real life. Okay, these are the 3 ways that you will be able to plug them in tomorrow for credit. If you don't plug it in one of these 3 ways, you're probably not going to get credit for it. Okay, that obviously goes together. I just didn't have the space with that these 2 did. Okay, all capitalized, all lowercase, or just the first letters capitalized. All right, here's what you're going to do. Pause this once I get done talking. Try those 3, check in with me, and then we'll call it good. All right, go ahead and pause. All right. So hopefully by now you did all 3 and you didn't just wait for me to start talking. All right, last weekend Samantha reads a minimum of 3 books. Keyword here is minimum, and then we have the number 3 as our reference. Okay, looking up above, you should see minimum is greater than or equal to. So X is how many books she reads. It's greater than or equal to 3. So if she's reading a minimum of 3 books, okay, that means that's the least amount she can read. Okay, it would be 3. 3 is equal to 3, so that works. But minimum means she could read more, so she could read 4, 5, 6 books. And all of those work because 4, 5, and 6 are all bigger than 3. Alright, rewriting it, flip those two around. Symbol is pointing at 3. Keep it pointing at the 3. Graphing wise, okay, put the 3 in the middle, 2 and 4 as well. Alright, it is an equal to sign, so we're going to go close circle at 3. And it's greater than, so it goes to the right. Alright, take a look at number 5 with me. Adjust the camera real quick. Alright, number 5, Miss Kelleher is shorter than 70 inches. Okay, so Miss Kelleher's height is the X, and if you take a look up top, shorter than is less than. Okay, let me underline that so you see it. Shorter than 70 inches. Okay, and then flipping that around, flip the 70 and the X. Symbol is pointing at the X, keep it pointing at the X. Alright, and then we just need to graph. $70 right there. 69 and 71 around it. Okay, no equal sign, so we're an open circle at 70, and because she is less than, numbers that are less than go to the left. Alright, for those of you curious how tall 70 inches is, Mr. Teitsma is 74 inches, so that's 6'2". So 6 foot is 72 inches, so that's 5'10" right there. So 70 inches is 5'10". So she is shorter than 5'10" is what that's saying. Alright, last problem. Temperature outside is below freezing. This one depends on which scale you use. And I'll do both so you can see them both. Alright, if we're doing Fahrenheit, so degrees Fahrenheit. Okay. X is the temperature, is below freezing, and there's an amount that freezing is. Okay, below we know is less than, so X is less than, and the temperature that water freezes at, or we call freezing, is 32 degrees. So X is less than 32. Along with that, that means that 32 is greater than X. If X is less than 32, 32 is bigger than X. Okay, I'm going to do our graph so we keep all that together. Okay, 32 degrees, right in the middle, 31 around it, and 33. Okay, less than, so at 32 we're an open circle, and less than goes to the left because that's the way the symbol's pointing, as well as that's where numbers get smaller. Okay, so that's Fahrenheit. We're now going to take a look at degrees Celsius. If you're doing Celsius, the temperature that water freezes at in Celsius is 0, which means that X is, instead of 32, it's less than 0. And then also, 0 is greater than X. Our graph for this one, okay, we're going to, instead of F32, we'll have 0. And you may be wondering, why is Mr. Teitsma showing this? Why does it matter? Well, the first is I want you to see a negative number on the number line. Because around 0 you have -1 and then you have 1. The second is, in science class, we use the metric system because that's the standard way that all measurements are done in science, is using the metric. So you would be using the Celsius when you're talking temperature in science. Okay, again, we're an open circle at 0, and we are going to the left because it is less than. Alright, that is real life scenarios of inequalities. Come ready to practice those tomorrow. We'll be looking at some of these very real world examples, and you will be looking to create some inequalities and graphs based on the information you have. Don't forget the word. Make sure you write it down. Make sure you type it in correctly, and I'll see you in the morning.